Hey everyone, I'm Dan from JazzComposersPresent.com, an online space where composers, musicians, and listeners come together to celebrate the music we love. I'm joined today by Dave Rivello, composer and bandleader who apprenticed with Rayburn Wright and Bob Brookmeyer and is on faculty at Eastman School of Music. Dave is here to show us how to use meter changes as built-in tempo changes.
Some time ago when I started thinking about why and how I use meter changes, I realized that I'm often using them to extend or compress the time, almost in a way as maybe an inexact version of metric modulation, or in a way of a tempo change that's built into the music. And so in the first example, we're going to listen to my little idea, and there's nothing wrong with it, but then we're going to take that and I'll show you how I would work with that if I wanted to do this process. The next example we're going to look at, and we're just going to use this theme for each one, is if I were to actually do the metric modulation, which works out in this case. So we're at quarter note equals 120. And then in the second measure, if I made it the metric modulation of a dotted quarter note equals quarter, which would bring the tempo down to quarter equals 80. And then in the third bar, I went back to quarter note equals 120. Then this is, we're going to hear it that way. And then the example after that, we're going to see how the same thing basically happens when I use a 5/4 bar and keep us at quarter note equals 120. So here's the example with the tempo changing in the second measure. So if I show you that conducting wise, then with that change of tempo, then what we see is bo da do da 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 ba do da. If I do it with the 5/4, which we're going to see next, it should basically be that same thing. Bo do do da 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 ba do da. So it's extending that, it's slowing down the time, but we're staying in tempo. Another thing that this is very helpful with, as we all know as composers, when we mail our piece off to someone else and maybe there isn't even a conductor, we're building in the accelerando and the ritardandos into the phrase. And it also takes away some of the margin for error, even if there is somebody else conducting our music. So here's the example now with the 5/4 bar and keeping everything at quarter note equals 120. So hopefully you can hear exactly how that works. And then we can conversely do the opposite and take and remove a beat or more than one beat. But in my example, I use the 3/4 bar next. So we're speeding up the time. We're speeding up when we get to the next gesture or the next measure or the next idea. And so compressing, and a lot of times we would do this at the end of phrases, but I realized that this is that doing it in my music, what I'm doing is I'm doing it more in the middle of the phrase than I am necessarily at the end of the phrase. So to actually do this, it's not an exact metric modulation, but it's close. And it would, if it were exact, it would be a quintuplet quarter note equals quarter. But in this case, doesn't quite work out exactly, but you'll get the idea. It's the same concept. And so now the tempo will be faster in the second bar in this example, and then we'll see how that works with making it a 3/4 bar. So here it is with the tempo change in the second bar to speed up the time. Doing the same thing that we did with the 5/4 bar now with the 3/4 bar, then this example, make the second bar 3/4 and keep the tempo the same at quarter note equals 120, and it will do the same effect. So hopefully this makes sense and you see the overall concept, and just the push and pull is what I like in my music. So now I'd like to play for you an example of my piece, Moving Stories. And there you'll see in this the use of 2/4 and 5/4 in the way that I've been talking about. Of course, it can be, if the piece is in 7, it could be a 5/4 bar that compresses the time. If the piece is in 3, it could be a 7/4 bar that extends the time. And so just it's up to you how much and where the push and pull you want to be and which measures, but hopefully you'll hear it in this example of my piece. So hopefully that is helpful in understanding what I've been talking about today and how I use the meter changes in my music. And also, if you're interested in hearing the whole piece, Moving Stories, we'll put the link in the description below the video. So please check that out if you feel like hearing it. Also, one of the things that I think about with this way of working as well is from my time with Bob Brookmeyer, he often talked about masking the bar lines. We shouldn't feel the bar lines. We shouldn't even necessarily know what meter a piece is in. We should just feel the ideas just flowing. If you remember back to even me talking about the white note exercise some time ago, looking for flow. And so masking the bar lines, and Bob and I do discuss this in my book, Bob Brookmeyer in Conversation with Dave Rivello, thinking about not worrying about where the bar lines fall and just the flow of things.
Thanks for watching today's mini lesson. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos down below. To watch our full-length events and participate in live Q&As with our presenting artists, head to jazzcomposerspresent.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.